Good morning. Welcome to our City of Phoenix budget hearing. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Phoenix City Councilwoman Kate Gallego. I have the pleasure of representing this area on the Phoenix City Council, joined here today by our city manager, Ed Zerker, as well as many executives from the city and the City of Phoenix Mayor's Office. Thank you so much for joining us. This budget hearing comes out of our partnership with AARP and our interest in becoming a senior-friendly community. And so one of the feedback items we received was that we ought to have some hearings during the day when it's easier for people to arrive if you don't like to drive at night. But it's actually turned out to be a great hearing where some of people who have family obligations or other reasons have also been able to join us. So thank you for giving up some of your time to provide input to the City of Phoenix. Will be a great conversation today. We'll start off with two videos, one about our budget process and one about this year's budget, which has some highlights. Thank you to all the city employees who worked hard to get us in a surplus situation. Not long ago, we were in a very different situation, and it is a little bit more fun to talk about, do we want to do more in certain areas, more investments in public safety, more investments in safer communities, in libraries, in arts. So good news, and thank you to Ed Zerker for his leadership in getting us into that area. We'll focus more today on the operational budget, but would also encourage people to review our capital improvement plan, which has a lot of great investments in areas like senior housing. A favorite of mine is the Levine Community Center, millions of dollars in investment in South Mountain Park, which is about to celebrate its centennial. So continued conversation and a lot of good information, but we'll get started by recognizing also we have translation and interpretation services today. And so if you would introduce yourself.
Good morning, my name is Maria Garcia. Buenos días, mi nombre es María Elena García, soy intérprete del idioma español. Si alguno de ustedes necesitan ayuda de la traducción, por favor me lo dejan saber. Gracias.
Thank you so much, and now we'll get started with our videos.
Let's talk about the City of Phoenix budget. But wait, don't go anywhere. We're gonna make this quick and interesting. Did you know that last year, 1.5 tons of broccoli were served at Phoenix senior centers? And city vehicles like these garbage trucks traveled 2.9 million miles. That's equal to 119 times around the earth. Can't forget about our furry friends, the city's trained police and fire dogs. Their job is to sniff out the bad guys and find evidence. Last year, they ate 24,000 pounds of food to stay strong. So what does any of this have to do with the city budget? Everything. The Phoenix budget is around $4 billion and pays for lots of services that make your life better, safer, and more convenient. It's a huge effort made up of lots of smaller pieces, the programs and people that it takes to get the job done. So how those pieces fit together, the people, the buildings, the vehicles, and equipment, gets us to the total city budget. Explaining how it works isn't always easy. Managing every item in a budget with over 400 different services provided by over 14,000 employees is a year-round project, one we work on every day. And it's you, the residents of Phoenix, who we have to thank for giving us a budget to balance. The bottom line is that we get revenue, taxes and fees for specific services and grants that we spend on the cost of services. That's city employees, buildings, equipment, contracts, and supplies. Here's how we get revenue to pay for important city services. For example, when you eat at a restaurant, shop in a store, fill up the tank, fly out of Sky Harbor, or pay your property taxes or your water and trash bill. That all helps to pay for things like fire and police, paving roads, new bike lanes, more library books, street lights, clean water, parks and trails, just to name a few. To provide these important services, we divide our work and track our costs through 36 city departments and functions like police, fire, parks, libraries, neighborhood services, water and aviation, and our support services like the city clerk, human resources, finance, budget, and information technology departments. Like clockwork, every spring, departments look at what it takes to provide the services for the year. Did employees leave or did new staff join the team? Are there needed or unplanned building or equipment repairs? What will broccoli cost next year? Are there new projects that need to be considered? Okay, we talked about broccoli. Now let's talk about pie. Every department gets a slice, or at least a sliver of the pie, and most departments like police, fire, libraries, parks, neighborhood services, and human services are supported by the general fund. It's a pot of money that comes from these areas: general sales and property taxes, revenue distributed by the state from income, state sales, and vehicle taxes, and some fines and fees. The general fund is a little less than a third of the entire budget because it pays for services that everyone needs like public safety, senior and youth programs, neighborhoods and libraries. It's the part that gets the most of the public's attention. Now check out this slice. It's a little more than a third and it's called enterprise funds. Think business revenue. This slice is from those departments that only charge the people who use their services directly. For example, airlines and passengers at the airport, conventioneers, water and sewer users, and customers who pay for trash pickup and recycling. And the last slice is called special revenue funds. That's the last third of the budget. This is funding that comes from taxes dedicated for a special purpose. For example, Phoenix Parks and Preserves, Transportation 2050 for streets and transit, and the special dedicated sales taxes for police and fire hiring. Now, to get the budget to the next step, first we take a look at what we think it'll cost to provide our services next year, looking at salaries and benefits for the employees in each area. That's about 80% of our general fund budget, as well as other costs like replacing equipment and paying for gas, electricity, computers, and supplies. Then we estimate how much revenue we will take in through taxes, fees, and grants. By law, we have to make the revenue and expenses match. That's called a balanced budget. If there's not enough, we ask how to cut back. But if there's more revenue than expenses, we ask how it should be spent. It's the same process for general funds, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds. That asking is called the trial budget. It's a list of proposals from the city manager and staff based on what they have heard from the city council and the community. It's a trial budget because it's not final. It's a starting place to hear from you. The trial budget is discussed with the city council, and then we come to you. Every resident of Phoenix, yes, all 1.6 million of you, are invited to tell us what you think. You can attend a meeting and give your feedback there, or read the trial budget online and give feedback that way. Based on what you tell us, the budget is revised and presented to the City Council for a second round of discussion and feedback. And then the final budget is developed and presented for the City Council to formally adopt. That means when July 1st rolls around, broccoli can be served and trucks can roll through the city. Departments know how much funding they have. Remember the pie? But they have to live within their means and use only the slice they've been given. What happens next? A new year of work. The budget process for the following year starts and we do it all again. Managing and balancing the budget is a big responsibility, and we are glad to have you be part of it every year.
All right, so that video actually came out of suggestions we got last year from the budget hearings. People said they wanted to know a little more behind the scenes of how this worked. So now we want to go to the actual presentation, as the councilman said, of the 2018-2019 budget. There's more and more detail as you want to. So there's a pamphlet as you came in that has more detail if you want that. It's in English or Spanish. The video is a little broader overview, and if you really want to dig into it, phoenix.gov/budget at your leisure, you can learn more. If you'd like to speak today, we'd ask you to fill out a speaker card so we know to call your name, and we will get to that right after we roll this explanation overview of the trial budget proposal. So thanks again for being here, and let's go to the screen.
And now, the City of Phoenix 2018-2019 trial budget. Last year, we projected a potential budget deficit for 2018-19, more expenses than revenue, as high as $60 million. Thanks to strong leadership from the mayor and city council, we took early action, and now we have a balanced budget. Here's what we did. Last September, the city council voted to reduce overhead expenses. The council also acted on a new state law that allowed us to spread our public safety pension payments over 25 years instead of 20 years. The city also held the line on spending, giving us a surplus fund balance to start the year. And a healthy economy kept revenues on target. All this led to a 5-year forecast with our budget in balance. Now the trial budget starts with basically the same pie as last year, continuing our core services. In the general fund and dedicated revenue funds, this includes hiring firefighters and police officers, providing funding for parks, streets, transit, libraries, senior centers, youth services, arts and culture, and neighborhood services. We also have funds to replace aging vehicles, especially police cars and fire equipment, repair buildings and facilities, and keep our computer systems up to date. And with some of the savings from last year, we funded a police and fire pension reserve fund to help pay any unexpected future changes in their pension costs. The trial budget includes $2.7 million in proposed enterprise and special revenue fund additions to keep pace with growth and workload demands, as well as $2.9 million in additional general funds to allocate for community services. The general fund provides support for basic services across the city, like police and fire staffing, park and library operations, and programs for youth and seniors. Let's walk through each area. First, the general fund. Public safety has the highest priority in our budget, with over 70% of our general fund going to police, fire, prosecutors, court system, and emergency management. In the trial budget, the proposal is speed up processing of the more than 77,000 police public records requests received each year by reallocating current resources. In addition, the police department will add resources for crime scene investigation. Adding 5 new positions will help officers locate and apprehend violent offenders possessing guns. The addition of 8 fire protection positions to support the city's building inspection program and ensure properties throughout the city comply with fire safety laws and standards. And we're budgeted to continue hiring police officers and firefighters. The trial budget includes a $6 million general fund set-aside and related grant support to keep fire's filled staffing level at 1,654 positions for the next 3 years. Reducing the impacts of homelessness in Phoenix is a priority. With a nearly 60% increase in unsheltered homeless, the goal of the city is lead with services by connecting individuals experiencing homelessness with appropriate services while reducing the impact on Phoenix neighborhoods. The PHX Cares Community Action, Response, Engagement Services Initiative saw more than 1,000 calls for outreach and engagement in the first 3 months. As part of the new PHX Cares initiative, the proposed budget provides for additions across human services, neighborhood services, and parks and recreation, including the addition of 2 more contracted homeless outreach teams to increase the city's caseload capacity by 360 clients per year, and continuing to lead with services. Parks and Recreation will add 2 ranger positions to provide direct outreach to people needing services in the city's urban park system. This brings our total number of rangers to 79. adding 2 positions to coordinate client service referrals, improve response times, and ensure coordination of efforts by all city departments to address code violations that arise from encampments. Phoenix continues its investment in neighborhood livability in this year's proposed budget with these proposed additions. Add 5 enforcement staff in the Neighborhood Services Department for a new sober living home licensing program. The purpose of this program is to enhance the health, safety, and welfare of residents of structured sober living homes and the surrounding community by establishing standards and regulations for the homes and their operators. As part of program administration, the City Clerk Department also will add 2 licensing positions to process and oversee applications funded through licensing fees. Increasing shade and replacing trees citywide with $450,000 to plant 750 trees annually and provide water and maintenance for them to thrive. This is also part of the city's Tree and Shade Master Plan. Additionally, the Office of Arts and Culture is proposed to receive an additional $30,000 in funds to increase grant funding for Phoenix arts and culture organizations to pre-recession levels. There is also funding for a project manager tasked with developing a Latino cultural center in the city of Phoenix. And for our libraries, continuing to restore hours for the community. This proposal makes Sunday hours permanent at 4 libraries: Yucca, Century, Harmon, and Ocotillo. Lastly, the budget provides for funding to support outreach for the 2020 census to make sure all residents participate and get counted, and the staff needed to oversee the city's involvement with the census count. Now for the non-general fund piece of the pie. Remember, this funding comes from dedicated fees and charges to customers, like development fees from companies that must pay for construction-related services provided by the city. The Planning and Development Department will use this revenue to add 18 positions, handling everything from plan review and site inspections to mapping, long-term planning, and more frontline staff for customer service assistance. Additionally, the Street Transportation Department will use special revenue funds to add 30 positions at a cost of $859,000 to improve our streets and support the paving maintenance and traffic improvements, as well as traffic signal electricians, Transportation 2050 related bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure development and maintenance, and employees to oversee the city's pavement plan, street sweeping, and proper implementation of Americans with Disabilities Act required projects. Altogether, these pieces of the pie do more than describe the work our city departments will do in the coming year. They tell the story of Phoenix's continued growth to be the 5th largest city in the country, with a diverse and thriving economy and a community that's in demand as a great place to live, work, and play. Thanks for taking the time to learn about the 2018-19 City of Phoenix trial budget. And please don't forget, this year's budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like. Make sure you pick up a budget pamphlet outlining all the proposals and options at any of the public meetings or online at phoenix.gov/budget. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for participating in this important process.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's filled out a card. If you'd like to comment and haven't had the time to fill out a card, it is not too late. Once we call your name, if you could come up to the microphone. It is important to speak closer to the microphone so that we can pick you up, and this will be recorded so that people who weren't able to join us can learn what everyone had to say. Our first speaker will be Kimberly Smith. Our first speaker will be Joe Spector.
Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm Joe Spector. I'm the President and General Director of Arizona Opera. This is an appropriate moment for us to be here because Arizona Opera is celebrating the 5-year anniversary of being in the Arizona Opera Center, which is located at McDowell and North Central, an incredibly special home that I think has encouraged the development of the Muse and the Broadstone Arts apartments complexes, and really going to the overall theme that a strong arts and culture sector encourages economic growth in a number of areas. That center wouldn't be possible without the capital support from the city that we received when we moved in 2013. And you know, on a personal note, it was one of the things that sent a signal to me when I was considering moving to Arizona that Arizona was a place and Phoenix was a place that was serious about the arts, and is a wonderful facility for us. We're very appreciative for the support that we receive from the city of Phoenix in terms of general support as well as rental support for the use of Phoenix Symphony Hall. That makes our operation that much more efficient to execute. And I think that Arizona Opera, in the chapter that we're entering now, artistically is trying to, in return, provide the most civic value possible to the city and its residents in terms of not only our education program that reaches tens of thousands of students in K through 12 and also adult learners, but also through a main stage program that is meant to engage the city across a variety of areas where typically traditional opera has not penetrated, including programs like Maria de Buenos Aires, which will open our coming 2018-19 season, the tango-based opera, Charlie Parker's Yardbird that talks about the great American jazz saxophonist, Silent Night, a Pulitzer Prize-winning opera about World War I and the shared humanity across enemy lines. I think what I would just say is that I applaud the city for considering an increase in its support for the arts and culture sector, which I really believe is something that grows the pie for all of us and makes it possible to increase investment in other areas of the economy, attracts new businesses to the community, and we are thrilled to be a part of that. And I would just encourage in future years, the more fully that the city invests in those areas, the more fully we can serve the city, and hopefully the larger that pie grows. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you, and happy anniversary. And we'd ask speakers to keep their comments to 2 minutes so that we can give everyone the attention they deserve. Ash Us, followed by Christine Dickin.
Oh, perfect. I'm a little tall. Hello, folks. My name is Ash. I am a staff member at On Your House of Arizona. It's a place of hospitality for people who are experiencing homelessness and poverty. I'm here today to talk about why we need to be spending more money in serving our folks who are experiencing homelessness. So I did my thesis in my social sciences research on the effects of Housing First and how that can reduce costs for cities across the country. So just a little bit of information to share with all of y'all. In a study by an individual named Greenberg, when individuals were provided Housing First that included wraparound services, after 1 year, costs dropped. So these are healthcare costs, dropped from $195.93 to $28.93. So each of us are here today because we have things that we believe we need city money for. All of us are passionate about our causes. But what is important to remember is that the investment in human services, the investment in helping get people housed, getting people off of the streets is something that in the years to come will allow each of you to receive funding for your causes, for your purposes. At On Your House, I have to call the fire department, the police officers, probably 3 to 4 times a day because somebody is experiencing a severe mental illness and I, at 23 years old, am not capable of caring for them. So 4 police officers or 4 emergency department responders have to come, take time, respond to these folks. if we were to connect them to treatment, to services, we would be able to use those officers and commit their skills, their expertise in other areas, in other situations of crisis. We're working on, the Phoenix Cares initiative, which is trying to do a lot of great work in the city of Phoenix. But when I called at least 10 times a day to report the encampments outside of Andre House, Phoenix Cares told me that they were no longer responding to calls on 11th Ave and Jackson, where each night we feed at least 500 people 6 days a week. So it's important. I would just like to advocate, please consider the investment in serving individuals and getting them housed. It's not just because I care about this, because I used to eat at a St. Vincent de Paul. It is because it will make it possible for every single person in this room to be able to get more funding in the years to come. If anybody has any questions about my research, I'm happy to share that information with you. I've studied and assessed the CICH report, which awarded money in 2003 to 11 communities to better serve the chronically homelessness, which 2 years after this funding went to these communities, healthcare costs in each of these communities declined by 50%. So 50% of what 11 cities were spending on healthcare costs for the chronically homeless declined by 50%. So if you want any of that info, please, I'm here, talk to me. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Christine, followed by Craig Tripkin.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm Christine Dickin, and I represent the Cesar Chavez Friends. I won't be here for the April 17th meeting that is in that area, but I thought I could be here today because I speak for all libraries. And what we say is every library, every day. And I think it must be really tough, even hearing the two speakers before me, to create a budget that meets the needs of all of the citizens of Phoenix. But on the other hand, we all have to speak about what's important to us. So I appreciate the additional hours, but I also want to say that there's more that can be done in terms of extending our library systems. I was at the volunteers luncheon for the Friends of the Library last Saturday, and it was a lovely event at the Heard Museum. And while we were there, Representative Deborah Stark spoke to us. And she had just come from a bike rodeo where there are a lot of Phoenix police in attendance. And when Deborah said where she was going next, she said she was coming to this luncheon, and you were there, Kate. Mm-hmm. And the Phoenix police said, "Oh, we love the library." And when she asked, "Why do you love the library?" it was because it keeps kids off the streets. And we know that libraries do that. We don't have a community center in Levine yet, but our library is the hub of that community. And the Friends group, which we raise money in order to provide programs within the library, we have a very strong group, and we do a lot of programs.
Thank you.
And so what we would like, because we're closed on Fridays, is we would really like to have the library open every day so that we could continue to provide the programs for children and for adults. So some of the things that we do are chess club. We have a farm to table with Chef Larry. We have learning puzzles and Legos and Mango and anything that'll bring kids off the streets and into the library. We also have teen volunteers that have a great experience and get to put that on their resume and do their volunteer hours. So all of those things are really important. So summer's coming. We don't have a community center in Levine, and that means Fridays we're going to be closed. And that means, number one, Cesar Chavez has partnered for lunches. And so that's one day where children won't get lunches in our community that may be hungry. One day that we're not providing programs. And so all I would say is, thank you for all the work you do on the budget. I know you have tough decisions, but we really believe in every library, every day, because that best serves our communities.
Thank you. Craig will be followed by Ken Crane.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm here to talk about homelessness. And I guess I'd like to start by saying homelessness is bad for the individual who's homeless. It's bad for the neighborhoods that they're homeless in, and it's bad for the community. We've we've talked about the outreach program. I think the outreach program is an extraordinary and important thing. We've got to address the problems, and we don't have places to put those people. The unsheltered homeless population in the city has tripled in the last 6 years. The beds, with the closing of the overflow shelter coming in September, will have decreased by 382 beds, which is 27% of our total beds will be reduced come that point. Cass is expected to try to take over that load. I will tell you, and I want to assure you, Councilwoman, that we will not want to expand unless we have appropriate casework to deal with the people that we've got. And I will tell you quite honestly, we're talking about one-time expenses and ongoing expenses that are going to be in the millions to do that. So it's going to be very, very difficult to maintain the service platform that is necessary. I will tell you that case management services plus shelter work. The United Way study that was done on the rapid rehousing money that they injected into the overflow shelter recently, the United Way study shows and says that people who are sheltered are more successful in getting and staying in housing than people who didn't come from shelter. That is the local fact that has been stated by United Way. Case management, effective case management, I think, can reduce the number of beds or reduce the length of stay, which will increase the number of beds available by, it's an estimate, but maybe 50 to 100 beds, which will lower the expansion needs if we indeed go there. 2 minutes already, my goodness. We have 80% positive exits with our case management system. That's well, of known known exits, and that is to housing, to families, and that sort of thing. So bottom line, case management works. Case management is necessary in order to make the system work, and we have to have places to take people. Community Bridges does not have many places to take people, and if we want to get homeless people out of our neighborhoods, the outreach program is important, but we have to have a place to take people, and I believe strongly that shelter plus case management is that, and as we lose beds, we're going to have to do some analysis as to how we're going to most effectively deal with homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Crane will be followed by Fred Ulrich.
We got some tall speakers today.
All right. Good morning. My name is Ken Crane. I'm a Phoenix police officer, going in my 29th year. I serve as the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Okay. Can you hear me now? No, it's not on. All right.
Sorry. We haven't started your time.
Absolutely.
Try over.
You want this one?
Can you hear me? Better? Okay. All right. All right. Once again, my name is Ken Crane. I'm a Phoenix police officer going in my 29th year, and I'm the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. I'm going to talk real quick about police manpower and staffing, as it seems I do every year at these meetings. Phoenix today is the 5th largest city in the nation. We got a population of 1.6 million. And whether you know it or not, we're under attack by the criminal element out there. We see news stories about the number of police officer-involved shootings out there, and so it's a big deal out there for us. But sadly, we continue to be short-staffed and continue to have trouble filling out squads and staffing our precincts. So how bad is it? Well, right now, as we sit here today, the community of Ahwatukee, for example, is 70,000 citizens, but any given day they have 2 to 3 cops patrolling for 70,000 people, all right? So here's an interesting statistic that we tracked over the last 12 months. In 2017, we hired 239 new Phoenix police officers. Sounds pretty good, except we also in that same time period lost 137 due to retirement. So very experienced people, brand new people coming in. It gave us a net gain of 102. If you divide by 12 months in a year, we had a net gain of a little over 8 officers a month for all of last year, new officers. So the truth today is that Phoenix has hundreds less officers than we had in 2008 at the start of the economic downturn 10 years ago, all right? Hundreds less. So we've added population, we're growing like a weed. Another interesting statistic, recently we surveyed our membership, all the rank and file cops in Phoenix. This is staggering. 93% of police officers said we don't have enough manpower to effectively fight crime. 93% said we don't have enough police manpower to keep officers and citizens safe. Think about that for a minute. So we do understand the city has big challenges, but that's why we're here today. We want to say loud and clear, we don't have the budget resources we need to keep the city safe. We might have the budget resources, maybe they're not being allocated quite properly because everything stems from having a safe city. Without public safety infrastructure, your city is nothing. People don't want to live here, businesses don't want to come here. So I'll wrap it up here. How many cops should we have? The city has previously said we'll try to hire up to 3125. We've got 2,850 right now. We'll hire up to 3125 and call it good. 3125 is still 260 fewer than we had in 2008, 10 years ago. We should be staffing at about 2.5 officers per 1,000 citizens. That would be a police department of 4,200 cops for a city of 1.6 million that covers 530 square miles. All right? And that's good timing. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I would encourage each and every one of you to call your council person, the mayor, the city manager, and let them know that we have to have public safety properly staffed. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred will be followed by Kimberly Smith.
Good. I think that should do it.
I'm sorry, Fred will be followed by Kimberly Smith. I'm trying to give people warning of when they're coming, but Fred first.
That's okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Fred Ulrich. I'm a commissioner for the Arts and Culture organization here in Phoenix. I'm a relatively newcomer. I've been here 5 years, coming from the Chicago area. But more importantly about the arts and culture, I'm a consumer of the arts and culture downtown. My wife and I chose to move downtown to enjoy many of the attributes and cultural things that are existing and potentially are there. And I want to thank the council. That was a quick 2 minutes. Okay. I want to thank the council for their support in the arts and culture. But one area that we should be looking at, and that is to the future of arts and culture, and that is through the grants program. For every dollar spent by the city, it returns $26 back to the city via arts and culture. And to think about being out in the communities, out in the neighborhoods, what way do you create an appreciation and also a training ground, so to speak, for the artists, other than through the grants program? And right now, it's a low number in our estimation, and we would very much like you to think something for the future, something that gets out into all of the communities, the grants programs. So with that, again, I want to thank you for the support, and I think that's it. Am I close to the 2 minutes?
You're great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kimberly is next. She will be followed by Bobby.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you to the council for all of your support over the past years to Arizona Opera. I am Kimberly Smith. I'm a member of the Arizona Opera Board of Directors, and I just wanted to make a couple of points today. One is that we have a budget between $6 and $7 million, and the majority of that budget gets spent on people's salaries, and those people are primarily local. So the money that we spend goes right into people who are going to be spending that money, increasing revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really key. But also key is the fact that the arts and culture within the city of Phoenix is crucial to improving the viability of companies coming in. Whether they're increasing their footprint or whether they're coming in to have a big presence here, the arts and culture is important, and especially the opera, because the opera is something that it's like something that creates a scene that is important to people. Whether they are opera lovers or not, they always want a strong opera. And our opera company is not only strong, but it's good. And that's mostly due to the great work of our staff and the city of Phoenix. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bobby will be followed by Jessica Bueno.
I don't have any questions for something, but I would like some information about what you're planning for the Levine Senior Center and Rec Center.
So we have money allocated in this year's capital improvement plan for the Levine Community Center, which right now would be a multi-generational facility.
So it's similar to the community centers we have in our large regional parks. There's one up at Pinnacle Peak and 35th Avenue would be one of the more recent examples, which is a large community center with areas for community gathering, for games for kids, gymnasiums, all those sorts of things. The councilwoman has been advocating for this, and now we have $5 million a year for 3 years put into the budget to build a center. The trick is going to be to staff it, but we got to figure that out, because the Levine area has been growing for a long time, and it's been on the books to bring a community center to that part of town. And so starting this year with the design element, and then we'll move in 2019, I believe, or 2020 into construction, that phase of it. But it will be down at the Cesar Chavez Park and located there as a large community center, one of the largest ones in the city.
Thank you. It's an exciting opportunity for Levine, which is one of our fastest growing areas of our city and only going to grow more.
I just add one more thing is, one of the reasons why we're able to do that is because of the Phoenix Parks and Preserve Initiative. So it is being funded from the 3PI, which is a 1/10 of a cent sales tax that's paid by Phoenix residents. And so because of the action Phoenix residents took to do that, we're able to improve our parks, add park rangers, and do things like the Levine Community Center. So that's the source of the funding.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilwoman Gallego and Mr. Zerker. My name is Jessica Bueno. I am president of the Oakland Neighborhood Association. We're located at 15th Avenue in Van Buren. So I'm here to speak about the homeless and the impact that it has on our neighborhoods. I am clearly with Andre House and Cass about getting quality services and providing for the homeless, but we need to provide them other resources outside of the downtown area. My neighborhood is inundated with problems that they cause, meaning loitering, littering. You know, we try to clean up our neighborhood as best we can, but we're outnumbered. We can't be out there day and night, and our neighborhoods look like we don't care about them. And so what I'm asking is for maybe reconsidering or restructuring the Phoenix Cares Initiative, and maybe doing some surveys and finding out specifically how it can improve, because we're waiting 4 weeks to get neighborhood services, public works out there to clean up the encampment that has been called in, and they moved along the individuals, but there's still the trash there. So what I'm asking is for funds go allocated to the departments that help us in our neighborhoods, meaning public works, neighborhood services, parks and rec, public safety, and fire and police. So that's what I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the city manager has convened some folks who I'll be meeting with shortly to come up with sort of a more tangible number for that particular request, because we definitely need more aid in this particular area and are trying to get a firm number. So thank you. Joseph Benesh, followed by Rick Naymark.
Thank you very much. Joseph Benish, I'm here as a member of the Office of Arts and Culture Citizen Commission. I do also have a day job in the arts. I want to thank the councilwoman and city manager. I think Phoenix is the land of opportunity. I moved here 25 years ago and I thought it would be a rest stop in life, but it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I recognize that managing a city of this size and this size budget is an impossible task, so thank you for the diligence. I know a lot of times you hear from us when things go wrong. In general, I think things go well in Phoenix and are going better. Thank you for the bump in funding for the Office of Arts and Culture. As you heard from some of my colleagues ahead of time, you know, there's a huge return on the arts when people go out and spend money to see a show. They're also spending money on dinner, on travel, on parking meters. They're also sometimes buying new ties, you know, or apparel for their people that are going out with. And all that money is going, most of that money is going to local jobs. And there's an extra return there that we never measure, which is that your local artists are kind of your original localists. We like to spend money on local restaurants and local places. So you see that money just keep putting back and back into the community. But there's so much more about the arts, and it's actually one of the problems with the arts. Here's the problem with the arts. It's ubiquitous. Like, we're everywhere. And so sometimes it's hard to measure those impacts. Every day you wake up, unless you wear all gray clothes and live in an all gray house in an all gray neighborhood, you are surrounded by arts and creativity. And that is one of the challenges, because is arts the experience of going to the opera? Is arts sending your kids to an amazing arts immersion summer camp, like one that I know of at Phoenix Center for the Arts? Or is arts the clothes you put on? Because it's creative people that design clothes. It's creative people that run restaurants. So again, one of the beauty and the challenges of the arts is that the arts are everywhere. And there is no great city here in this country or throughout the world that does not have a strong arts and cultures scene. So thank you for that support. We'd love to see more. We're behind when you adjust for inflation, where we have been over the last 25, 30 years. But I think you're in general doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick Naymark will be followed by Amy Esposito.
We're okay, aren't we? All right. My mother told me not to slouch. There we go. Hi, my name's Rick Naymark, and I serve on the board of an organization called the Friends of Phoenix Public Art. And I want to thank you for, number one, this incredibly open, positive process, for doing the kinds of things you could do, to not be here telling us what kinds of cuts we need to take. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate your past support for increasing the budget for maintenance of public art. Our city has one of the best public art programs in the nation, maybe in the world. But public art, because it's outside and exposed, is sort of like, you know, planting a tree. You got to water it, you got to take care of it, you got to keep it cleaned up, et cetera. And unfortunately, our public art is suffering. We're doing fundraising on our own to try to help create funds for maintenance of public art. What we'd really like to see this year is just a tiny increase of about $16,000 in the budget to get us to the $100,000 goal we've been working toward to have in the budget for the city to use for maintenance of public art. We're not going to start our job of raising funds to supplement that. So I'll leave that there. I do want to say I read through the budget. I think your priorities that you've laid out are great. I wouldn't quibble with any of them, and I wouldn't say cut those to do what I'm asking for. But if there's more money, I'd really appreciate it. The second thing I want to talk about is historic preservation. Bond money has been the source of saving lots of gems in our city, and unfortunately that bond money is pretty much gone, I think. And so we got to figure out a way to put some money aside for emergency situations when a property owner wants to tear down a historic building, which is their right in most cases, and it's hard for the city to go in and legally stop it. So you got to have the funds to make it happen. Luckily, economic development has put some funding into that, but we need some money specifically set aside for that purpose. So thank you. One last little thought on your budget. You're hiring a lot of people in the planning development area to ramp up based on development needs. I would just talk to your staff and consider looking at more of that being contractual so that if the activity shrinks, you're not laying those people back off. So just something to take a look at. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Amy will be followed by Ev.
Hello, my name is Amy Esposito. I'm the president of Villa Verde Neighborhood Association. I'm also the executive director for Trees Matter, with a mission to inspire and promote an increased tree canopy. But really here today, I'm speaking as a citizen. I definitely agree with Rick on historic preservation and considering a bond in the future. I also want to push to have more funding for trees. I'm so excited to see, an increase of $450,000. It did say in the budget that 1,000 trees are lost, and this would plant 750. So we're not even replacing the amount of trees that are lost each year. So I'd love to see the trees replaced and even increasing our tree canopy, which I know is the goal for the Tree and Shade Master Plan. I also would love to see more funding going to parks to support more density and creating microclimates for cooling. I live in a neighborhood that has it's in the middle of an urban heat island. So those are the things that are my priority as a citizen and, of course, my professional career, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva, followed by Carlos Avila.
I'll clarify something on the trees. We actually, last year, the council added money to be able to replace the lost trees. We didn't explain it very well in the report. You're right. This 750 is actually net new beyond what is lost. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Eva Olivas. I'm with Phoenix Revitalization Corporation, and we work primarily with residents, businesses in the community to promote healthy living and access to everything that you would want in your neighborhood. One of the things that we've been aggressively working on is the homeless population and its impact on neighborhoods. And in the budget, you are requesting that there be $300,000 allocated for community outreach workers to support the current work at Human Service Campus or CAS, one of the two. I really strongly oppose it, and I oppose that because I feel that this is the focus of almost every foundation, every grant person that's in this country right now is dealing with homeless, and I feel the city should partner with some of the providers in order to access that funding stream rather than using general funds from the city, which we've already, from my understanding, allocated about $4 million, which I think is more than our fair share of responsibility to help this population. I also feel that that money should be redistributed to the police department, to neighborhood services, to public works, to recreation. Public works, by the way, is a very under-recognized department in my mind. To the recreation department for the park rangers. I know you currently have, I think, 8 maybe, or whatever number is there is not enough. But I can tell you the park rangers have been doing an extraordinary job. The police department is extremely overwhelmed, and we have to approach the homeless issue as a dual issue, which is the homeless population and the needs for the homeless population and the impact of the homeless population and the needs of the residents in the neighborhoods that we have in Phoenix right now. So I strongly oppose that. Would like to see it reallocated. Would like to see the city aggressively work with partners in order to get that funding stream for additional caseworkers, for community bridges, or anybody else. And I was very excited to see that the state was not supporting the overflow shelter, but they were in fact supporting more permanent housing, as I saw the letter today. So thank you.
Thank you. Carlos.
Thank you. My name is Carlos Avila. I'm here in behalf of the Nuestro Barrio Neighborhood Association. To give you an idea, this is just the neighborhood just west of Sky Harbor. As everyone actually knows, this was actually a purchase buyout by the city in the last 18 years. I'd like to come forward to request to the city to make clearly to, and Mr. Zerker and Councilman Gallegos. First, I'd like to thank Councilman Gallegos for appreciation of what she's done for the parks at Nuestro Park. It's important to get this out because a lot of city departments are not aware that this program has ended, and a lot of resources have been targeted not to go into this community. And it's very important to get that clear communication across. Secondly, I know we're on limited time. A lot of resources need to go into this community that have been neglected. I'd like to point out too, specifically Buckeye Road. It was a CIP project, was set up for the past 4 years. It was Buckeye from Central to 16th Street. The first process in that allocation was $14 million. They just are finishing up this project, and talking to the project manager, this project now has been reduced down to $1.5 million. That's a significant impact on just the construction part. Why is it important, and what are we going to do? What's going to happen with that extra funding source? It's important to look at that funding source and allocate it to probably neighborhood services, parks and recreation that are less funded too as well. There are 2 community centers that have been closed in this area, and neighborhood kids actually need those resources. The amenities are there. We'd like to see that if possible, that can be opened up. This is Green Valley Park and Barrios Park, which is located on 16th Street in Mojave and 16th Street just south of the Maricopa Freeway. Again, you know, these are important to, again, please get this across to all your departments, development services, planning, streets department, neighborhood services. It's very important that the communication also come from aviation too as well, that you communicate and let the people know that this community is still viable and that the resources are needed back in this community, because no resources have been put in there because of the target of the Sky Harbor buyout. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Dean.
My name's John Dean. I'm a fire captain in the city of Phoenix. I've been on the job for about 21 years, and I've worked throughout the whole city. Currently assigned to special operations, which is all your hazmat, confined space, the helicopter guy. I'm one of those guys now. But I'm here today really to speak to the city manager and councilwoman, as well as to you folks, is that we're, from the fire side, we're really requesting that there be a plan of how we meet all of our needs, not just the fire side where we're down 138 people. And you've heard Ken Crane talked about his needs, but I hear you. I live in the city of Phoenix. I use the libraries, the parks. We deal with the homeless every day as far as response and their needs. So we all have needs, but one of the biggest challenges here is really about having a plan going forward, not just this year, but every year. Every year I come up and I speak, and it's the same thing. We've taken budget cuts for the last 10 years. We basically have been working, you know, having less for what our needs are. So a little bit about the fire department. Since 2010, we've increased 50,000 calls. In this district alone, we have about 15 trucks here. About 40,000 calls per year is just in District 8. And that's about 20% of total call volume. And so when we have trucks that run over 3,000 calls, that adds to response times as far as getting to you and getting to your door. We have about 1/3, well, actually 40% of the trucks that are in this area are over that 3,000 call mark. The city hasn't added a new station since 2009, Station 61, but we've grown tremendously since that time. We're going to continue to grow. So one of the things I know in the past we were supposed to have 3 additional engines and 2 ladder trucks. Those of you in the southwest here, we're short trucks, absolutely short trucks. We've grown tremendously in the last 10 years if you look at South Phoenix. And that's a concern that we have. The reality here is not, as I said before, we really need to try to come up with a plan, working with our city leadership as far as where we're going to go from today forward. Because I'm sure I'll be back next year when we have the budget concerns and the budget plan. So I thank you for your time. I think all of us need to think about where we need to go in the future and how do we get there. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. That concludes all of the cards we have for today's presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to provide input into this process. I hope it's been a good experience. Thank you so much to the seniors at the Senior Center for sharing their home with us today. I am glad we did not interrupt bingo, which we did last time, but we're learning. Always trying to get better as a city, and that's what this process is about. So thank you for participating. Thank you to our city employees and city manager, and have a great day.